Well, hello once again. We've got a great one for you tonight. It's I only met Caris actually at the Flux exhibition, so I wasn't familiar with her at all until then. And we've got some really interesting stuff to talk about. So I hope you're going to enjoy it. But before we do, I've got a few things to share too. So next weekend, I will be at the Lincoln Steampunk Festival. And one of the things that we get asked an awful lot is, what is steampunk? So many people think they know what it is. And it's one of the questions, if you ask a steampunk, you'd probably get 100 different answers. So what we did a few years ago is, when we were exhibiting at Comic-Con, we actually asked people, what is steampunk?
I have no idea.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh.
Oh gosh. Seriously, no idea.
That is a good one.
What's a steampunk?
Yeah. It's
Gothic. Gothic. I don't. Yeah.
So, no, right. I like this because I'd say it's like a genre.
I presume it's something to do with punk.
When you go first.
Oh, I don't know. It's a style, is the way I put it.
Yeah.
The aesthetic of.
No idea.
It's a form of art. Steampunk? Adventuring in the Victorian age.
It was really interesting because very few people knew what it was, even though they were at the Steampunk Emporium stand. So it's next weekend, that's where I will be. And I'm going to share something at the end of this show that I will be talking about next Friday afternoon in Westgate Hall in Lincoln. So it's one of the world's largest steampunk festivals. I've been exhibiting there since 2013, so a long time. But let's get on with tonight's show with our guest. So, excuse me, Caris Jackson is a mixed media collage artist living in Shropshire. And after graduating in 1995 with a degree in fine art, Caris embarked on a career in the... I read this earlier and I thought, I really hope I've not had a drink with my glass of wine with my dinner tonight. I didn't, and I'm still going to get it wrong. Anyway, participatory arts. Try saying that if you've had all your teeth out. Undertaking residency in delivering workshops in schools and colleges. And she continues to deliver multidisciplinary art services for all ages, from one-day workshops to large-scale extending projects for education, community organisations and businesses. So as usual, I have put a video together of Caris's work, and be prepared to be blown away a little bit. Well, I told you it was good. Now, we've had our challenges, so we're hoping that everything's going to be cool when I bring in Caris Jackson. Hello.
Hello, nice to see you.
Finally. Yeah, we've had our challenges this evening, haven't we? Trying to get your internet working properly, but at least we're there now. I had quite a lot of difficulty choosing music for that video because all the people that you've got in, Dolly Parton, Grace Jones, all of those people, when you start searching music, suddenly you're into copyright and everything else and you can't use them. So I just thought, you know what, I'm going to go with something that I feel that your work sort of does for me. So that's why I chose what I did.
Yeah, that was great.
So come on, let's talk about where you started. So it says on your website, at the age of 4, following a visit to an art college degree show in your hometown of Wolverhampton, you decided at the age of 4 you wanted to be an artist, and here you are at the age of 12 managing it.
Absolutely, yeah, and it is true. I can still remember going into the art college, and it was a student degree show. And if anybody knows the art building at the college in Wolverhampton, it's quite iconic. It's quite a sort of brutalist 7-story with basements building with windows all around, and a purpose-built art school. And going into a space where seeing that people were making different types of art, from photography and glass in the basement, going up into sculpture and printmaking and painting. You know, I just thought, wow, people do this. They come every day and do this. And that was, you know, and I've been given drawing books as a child, so I was already making art. But I just thought, this is what I want to come here and do this. And then I did. So I did my foundation there, and then sort of went on to do my degree afterwards. But I think I'm quite stubborn when I get an idea. So I just
clearly
stuck with it, and I never wanted to do anything else. I just wanted to be an artist.
So presumably you didn't go straight into doing the collage work you do now. So what did you start doing? What was your thing?
Well, I think like a lot of people, I mean, I was painting and drawing, really. I always really, really loved drawing. And actually, a lot of my drawings were, although I was saying actually, in fact, on my foundation, I was still collaging, or I was collaging at that point. And I guess it goes back to even as a child, scrapbooking. And then I used to collage all over my wall with things cut from music papers like the NME and Melody Maker. And music was always such a big part of my passion as well as art. So, you know, when I look back, actually, I was doing that in a way. But then I kind of got very much more into painting and drawing. And then I was making these sort of 3-dimensional drawing sculptures at one point, and wire work, and sort of almost like drawing with wire and making these life-size figures out of paper. But they always had a performance element, which is still very, you know, prominent in my work. I've always been really fascinated by the transformation of theatre, of music, of carnival, all of that sort of being more than, of the persona that is more than the person, if you know what I mean. So that's always been a kind of element, I think, that's gone through my work. From those early days.
So are you still teaching now? Do you still do workshops?
I do, yes, I do teaching of sorts. So I did train as a post-16 tutor. So I taught in colleges, universities, in the community. I taught in prison for 5 years. So I've always worked with, you know, what kind of adults, as well as doing some workshops for others. But I'm running specifically now kind of collage workshops, on my own, sort of based around my own work. So some of that I'm doing for local colleges, some of that I'm doing based from my studio. So I've kind of scaled back a bit on the general teaching of art design and do it more on my own terms, really, and more linked to what I do. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think that's probably right. It's the thing that comes up time and time again, actually, when I'm interviewing artists, is how long it takes to get where you want to be.
Yeah.
You know, it is a very difficult thing, and I've struggled with it for years because I'm not the world's most patient man, although people would think the opposite looking at my work because how much time I spend doing it. But I'm not. Nothing has ever in my entire life happened quick enough.
Yeah.
And often it's because you're waiting for other people to do what they need to do, etc., etc. So when you found, right, collage, this is the kind of work that I want to do. I mean, I find it interesting, and we'll talk about some of the images in a minute, but what I'm really interested in is you're using, you're sort of currently, this is your current body of work, you're reimagining vintage prints, but you're using magazines and stuff from the 50s and 70s. Now, I think we had a chat about this at Flux, and there is a very specific reason in terms of they're out of copyright, basically.
Some of that, I mean, some of it's to do with copyright, but also some of it is to do with, the actual images themselves. I mean, for me, it's very important that I repurpose things that have had a former life. That's that's really key to the work I make. So I don't print anything deliberately unless it's very specific for a commission, if it's a private commission or it needs to be of a specific person and there's not something available. But in most cases, I will search for the right image through vintage magazines. Sometimes they can be much older than the sort of 50s. Some of them are, I've used papers that are over 100 years old, but I like that it had a former life. And it's really funny what you just said about the patience thing, because I'm exactly the same. I'm like the most impatient person. But when I make art, I am the most, it's like that's where my patience is,
Exactly.
It can take me a really long time. I mean, I'll say the composition element is a very, very slow process for me because and I'm sure it's the same for you, that it just has to be right and it has to balance. And so I work very, very slowly and very meticulously. And it's like, imperfect perfection. I don't want perfection. I like the imperfections, but I know exactly what the balance needs to be. And I would say I like wonky symmetry. That's my aesthetic. So I know when I've got it, but it is interesting how the patience element, it's there, obviously, if I'm making art.
So, okay, so that leads me to my next question a bit, because especially looking at all the work that you had on the wall Flux, we did speak about the subjects. So, look, come on, this is an absolute favourite. Absolute favourite. So, how do you choose? How do you determine who you're going to use?
So, quite a lot of this body I've been work I've been making for really the last couple of years has been around iconic women in music, and particularly I'm very interested in the ones that particularly may not be mainstream, but quite uncompromising in every aspect of who they are, from their obviously their music and what they put out and taking control and ownership of that, but also in terms of their image and often going against the grain, and what's happened with a lot of these. They are women in particular I've been focusing on, although I am doing some with men at the moment as well. But it was how they are then, how they're treated by the media in terms of, as soon as you start, digging and making things a little bit uncomfortable for people, you can get ridiculed or sidelined or dismissed. So it's those kinds of stories, really. So, this one of Kate Bush. Kate Bush has been probably one of the people I've loved the longest, I would say, from childhood and still now, really. And I would say I kind of learned all the words to the kick inside as a child, wailing as a 7-year-old or something. But it was just, I just loved it, and it's still one of my favourite albums. And of course, we all remember seeing, Wuthering Heights for the first time, and it's just like, wow. And so actually, I found it really hard to make a piece of work initially about Kate because there's so much there, really, and it's always about my relationship with these people. It's not trying to tell their life story, it's about my relationship and what they mean to me. So I tend to do quite a lot. I'll search for an image, and I like when particularly my subject matter is looking directly at camera. Quite often I use that. I want that kind of, that
eye contact.
Eye contact, a bit unapologetic, this is who I am. And then I kind of tend to do a lot of reading. I'll immerse myself, I listen to podcasts, so I get a sense of kind of their backstory and what they do, but also which bits stand out for me and which hold meaning for me. And interestingly, with the Kate one, I mean, I love the image of her from the babushka era. But then when I was reading, the word fierce kept coming up in conversations and people talking about her, and they kept using the word fierce in the context of her fierce determination or fierce sense of what she wanted to produce as an artist and having complete control and being, kind of very uncompromising. So that actually was like my anchor word, which often I have. There's a kind of anchor to what the theme is. So, trying to make her look angry or, any of that. It's just that sort of that power, really, that sense of self and control over, what you do creatively and artistically, which, of course, as an artist is interesting to me. Yeah.
So how do you decide all the collage bits that you're putting on, the fishbone, bonefish in the bottom, what's the significance of all of that?
So there'll be little references. So the fish is a reference to Fish People, which is her own record label. There's little references there to the kind of song titles like Big Sky and Cloud Busting. And a lot of it is led also by, it's the colour palette for me is really important. So right from the get-go with that image, and there's these sort of lilac-y, blue, purple undertones. They're subtle, but, I know straight away I get a sense of what colour the background should be. And then I'm pulling things, that then work within that, really, because I want it to be cohesive. But I also think of them as a series. So I'm not thinking of each one just as one piece of work. I'm thinking how they will work when displayed as a series of works as well.
So you talk about the color palette being very important. So what is your starting point, her image or the image that you're using, and then you think about the color palette for that particular, because you do seem to like a bit of a pink background, that's for sure.
Well, and again, that was very deliberate. So the ones with the pink backgrounds were done initially for Latitude Festival in 2023. And so, and that was the Contemporary Women's Art Exhibition. And there was 8 pieces I created specifically for that. And it was, and the theme was given to me of icon and about making work in celebration of iconic women from art, music and fashion, which was the start of this series, really. And so the use of pink, but not necessarily, pink in many different forms was very deliberate choice. Yeah. And trying to sort of reclaim that as pink can be, it can be a powerful color. It isn't just so yes, there are all these different shades of reds and pinks and that I used, apart from there is a gold one that I put in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is Susie Sue, isn't it?
It is Susie Sue. Yeah, that was really amazing. Yeah, that was that was a very special one to make. I knew right from the start, because I was given the choice of, who I wanted to make. So I was picking women whose stories are really interesting to me or who had meaning to me. And so Susie Sue, I mean, I was very much, and still am, a fan of Susie and the Banshees. My subculture as a teenager was goth, really. So I just loved, you see somebody like Susie. And actually I was a bit young for punk initially, but I'm really interested in punk now. And obviously she came from that, so I was in the punk movement. But it was certainly when she was kind of in the more kind of goth, kind of genre that I came to sort of start listening to her. And she was playing at Latitude that year, so I knew I wanted to make a piece of work, to celebrate Susie Sue, and also actually all the different types of music that she has worked in, jazz and kind of exotica, and so there's a lot of references there to the different styles of music. She isn't just sort of one particular type, and it was lovely. The billboards were up opposite the stage that she was playing on. We did invite her to come and see the work. Did not unfortunately get a response, but it was there. And
so I was going to ask that question. I mean, I would be tempted. I would really be tempted with this one to find some way of sending that to Kate Bush. I would, and
people say this. I am starting to reach out and try, because I do try. I always will I'll try and contact photographers if there's a reference, or if I can contact the person, that the subject matter. And in some occasions, I have been able to make contact, and I have been able to get permissions, and I will play around with the images quite a lot. So I don't use too much of the original images. But I also, I do it with absolute, it is done with love and homage to and respect to those people. So I hope that they would love them.
So you take your life in your hands if you try to get Grace Jones to sign this for you, bearing in mind what she did. I think that was in the 70s that she clunked Russell Harty on his show.
Yeah.
I mean,
very interesting. And obviously Grace Jones is known, as soon as people talk about Grace Jones, they always talk about the kind of the attitude that she's scary, she's intimidating. And when I was making this work, I mean, it was really serendipity. There was an amazing documentary I saw quite late one night that was made. I don't know if she was sort of maybe in her 60s when it was made, and she went back to sort of quite humble, family background in Jamaica. And there was a couple of bits that really resonated, and one in particular where she said, I've come to realize that this persona, this aggressive, intimidating persona I've adopted, is kind of come from, I had a stepfather that was like that. I was scared of him, and he was intimidating, and he was quite verbally abusive. And so this is my armor, this is my protection. And that for me, and that again, that armor, so that was my focal point. I mean, I wanted it to be those fabulous, gorgeous goddess-like armor, which she is totally undeserving of. But, I was really interested in that vulnerability that came across that you don't think of. But of course, she's like anybody; she's a human being and multifaceted.
Yeah, and so
this
is
really about that, And actually, the two faces. I mean, they're two completely different images from different magazines that just sort of work together. And the one you can sort of see in her eyes, she's looking down, and she doesn't look. She looks uncomfortable, I think.
This is literally showing two faces of Grace Jones, and you've got that light and shade that is giving an indication to her personality. And then you spoke right at the beginning about liking the wonky symmetry, which this completely shows that, which is is very, very clever.
Thank you. It's really interesting. I'm interested in that. I love. I'm not interested in perfection. I'm very. I know what I want, but I want balance, but I like imperfection actually.
Yeah. And so Josephine Baker, I think this one, isn't it? Yeah. So she's again absolute icon. I'd be surprised if there isn't anybody that doesn't know who Josephine Baker is, but
depends on your reference.
I think it does. But just tell us again, why have you chosen what you've chosen around the snake, what's the reason behind it?
So again, I'm searching for images, and this was approached slightly differently than some of the others, because I knew I wanted to include her, because I wanted women from different eras as well. And so she was sort of, she was a dancer, kind of, you're thinking sort of 20s, 30s, very, very simple, humble beginnings in America, and then became hugely successful, popular dancer in France, lead dancer at Folie Bergère, and is known for almost sort of near naked dancing. There's a very famous like a banana skin skirt, and very frenetic, very energetic. And there's no way if you saw her, she absolutely was wanting to be noticed, and she carved the most incredible career from that. But then the other parts of her story is that she was a spy for the French resistance during World War II, and kind of had was smuggling messages out in sheet music. By then she was very wealthy, lived in a chateau, and that was a centre for the Red Cross. She did go back to America for a while and was campaigning for civil rights, and just still faced horrible racism. So she settled, she did settle in France, went on to adopt 12 children from all over the world. And so, her story, that kind of, so what I was doing really, I mean, with the skirt, it's just that bejeweled kind of, it is a little bit of a rags a rags to riches. This is massively a rags to riches story. But one of the things she did do, she kept exotic animals as pets, which was a bit of a thing, wasn't it? Sort of in the sort of Hollywood, the 40s, 50s era. I mean, she didn't actually, to my knowledge, she didn't actually have a snake. She did have a cheetah. So the snake was a kind of reference to the exotic pets without being literal, because it fitted with what I find and what I think works with the composition.
I think, we've got this. Jane in the chat has actually put, and it's a little while ago, so I think this is probably about the. This was about the first picture that we had.
With Kate with yarn in her hair.
Yarn in her hair, and she's also an aspiring collage artist, and also says, ladies with attitude.
Excellent.
Love it.
Oh, yeah.
It's really interesting how you obviously, there's a lot, I feel, I might be completely wrong, but there's a lot of, in your work, there's a lot of you. So in other words, there's a lot of you because of how these icons make you feel.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I do believe that, as an artist, you are making work about yourself, really, and it's something that's meaningful to you and important. So yes, absolutely, it's work about other people, but it's about, it might be, it's more than just the music I listen to. It's the attitude, it's the what they stand for, whether it could be something, words like resilience, and also, you can see quite a lot of it is through the alternative culture in music as well, which again was my, is what I'm still interested in. I'm still in, I am interested in subcultures, in clothes, in hair, in costume, and I think particularly, as a teenager, you do face quite a lot of backlash if you look different. And I think I always looked, and whatever, not just a teenager, generally, but I get to an age where you don't really care what people think. But certainly as a goth, as a 15-year-old goth, and people yelling at you in the street, you remember that time, and it's and I have a 22-year-old child who still sometimes experiences that sort of reaction from looking. So
do you not think though that also depends upon whereabouts you live in the country? If you're walking about in London like that, no one takes a blind bit of notice. And I completely understand where you're coming from, because when I first started exhibiting at the steampunk festivals and started dressing up as a steampunk, oh my God, I was so self-conscious. It's untrue. And in fact, I did one, I think the first year, I did my second exhibition down in Frome, down in the West Country, and I walked from my hotel to the exhibition, but I had a massive coat on so that nobody could see how I was dressed underneath. And then probably 3 years later, I just thought, you know what, I don't care anymore. And it also, in fairness, changed my attitude completely to everybody else. And one of those reasons as well is because when you do dress differently, it makes you feel different. And it actually, particularly when you dress up as a steampunk, because you've got a nice waistcoat on, you stand a little bit taller, but also it shows just how creative people can be. And I think that's the same. That's what you're effectively doing, is you're taking that from your younger years and expressing it all in your art now, which did see. I mean, this is an interesting one.
Oh yeah, that's a special one.
It's a bit interesting.
So Tracy Emin, I mean, I just think she's she's an absolute icon, and I've loved Tracy Emin as soon as I became aware of her, and absolutely somebody that has faced a whole heap of crap and backlash coming from the press, from the media, ridiculed, sidelined, dismissed, all of that, and she's been she's very, very honest, and I think a lot of people, maybe a lot of women, just really kind of relate to that honesty. And then I find it very interesting how then with her, going through that, had been serious cancer, and then that part of her story, she's now, the whole thing has sort of been turned around, and now she's become, she's dating Tracy, she's become, not a step, but there's a level of acceptance because of what she's been through. So this was almost like, the Saint Tracy, but she also, I do think about how there was times I was going through some difficult health stuff, and actually, in my head there was Tracy, was there actually, and was quite a strong presence in helping me get through stuff. So that for me was really important. And again, I'd hope she'd love it, because it was really meaningful for me to make it. And I kind of get across how I feel about her. She's hugely important to me.
Yeah, and this is another one. It's okay. So just to go through your thought process with this one.
I love doing this. So this is Vivienne Westwood, and I love the picture of her face as an older woman, as you often see her with her orange hair. And actually, I just loved her right till the end. She just was absolutely true to who she was, uncompromising in her image. And I made this on Coronation Day, and it was actually a little bit, I didn't realise at the time, I wasn't watching the King Charles's coronation. I was making this piece of work, and I'd got this coronation crown I'd cut out from a 1970s National Geographic magazine, and I'd had it for ages in a folder, and I didn't know whose head I was going to put it on. And I put it on Vivienne's head. And in all honesty, I didn't actually realise until afterwards I'd done it on Coronation Day. So it just felt so right. It was so meant to be. And then there's the references there. So a lot of the body of it is made out of, it's kind of soft furnishings. It's things like curtains and so, not actual, but images of curtains, draperies, sofas. But there is also some other sort of royal regalia there. Though I was thinking about the silhouette of her clothing, the reference to Elizabethan silhouette that she used. And then there's the broken glass kind of, the reference to the punk, the kind of dog collar. So yeah, all these little kind of references, but just celebrating her as the amazing kind of queen that she was.
So when you do something like you're doing, so let's take Vivienne Westwood or any of the others that we've looked at so far. You're going to take that, you're going to create this piece of work with all your collage onto it, and give us an indication of roughly how long something like that would take. Okay,
so if with those ones, because I was on a deadline, and I will, if I'm not on a deadline, I'll procrastinate quite a lot and not commit. But because I had to produce 8 pieces in, 4 months or something, I had to be really strict. So I gave myself 14 days to do each piece. Not necessarily, I would, but that generally, sometimes I'd work on 2 at the same time. But I always say that 12 of those days are spent moving bits of paper around backwards and forwards until I'm absolutely looking at it, and then a couple of days of sticking. It takes a really long time for me to feel happy with the composition. So that's where finding the right images. What is the story? I kind of keep going back to what's my anchor? What am I trying to say with these?
Yeah. So looking at your website, which you've got an extensive body of work sitting on there.
A little bit out of date now, I'm afraid.
Okay, but so I can see that you have prints done of your final pieces. And it's an interesting point. I bring this up pretty much every time when I'm talking to artists, to say having prints done is a very important part of an artist's life. And that is because somebody buys an original of you, and they might have a few people around for dinner. And that's it, isn't it? Because they've had a few people around for dinner, a few people have seen your picture, and then that's it. However, if you've got prints of that out there as well, and all those people are having mates round, they're going to see it too, all from that one image. So I think that prints are absolutely vital for when you're doing the sort of work that you do. But obviously, because your original's a collage piece, you lose that element of depth that you would get if you just have it as a print. So what, if that's the case, without going into how much actual physical cost, what is the sort of rough you know, you're going to sell a one-off piece. What's the rough relationship between that and say?
Oh no! Don't make me do maths.
No, I was trying to. How many times? How many print? I'm trying to get is how many prints? How many prints will you do? Yeah. How many prints will you do?
So I do limited edition G clays. Usually a couple of sizes. I don't really go any smaller than A3 mostly because they just lose. I mean, the originals are A2. It will go. I mean, they've gone bigger on billboards and things. So I might do. I mean, anywhere between usually about 100 is that set of prints.
Right.
That's right. So it's not, it's not a tiny amount. It's a reasonable amount, but that's, so yeah, there are limited editions.
Yeah.
And I've done that right from the start. Actually, with all my original work, I've always got, and I get it done professionally. I always work with other companies and do everything, so it's absolutely, top. The quality is amazing. The color matches are spot on. So yeah, I've always done that. And now with the work I make now, because since Latitude and the potential for it to go big, and I've talked about doing more, really like large billboards or projection work, as well as another conversation I'm having at the moment. The images I get scanned are a really high DPI. I need them to be so that you don't lose any of the clarity when they're scaled right up. So I always do that now.
No. So I've done that. I did that for an exhibition where I had my images projected on the buildings around it. It's completely illegal. And you have to, it is. You're not allowed to do it, actually. But we did.
You get permissions, though. Would you get permission from the person?
You won't get permission because it's illegal. They won't give you permission. But you just have to basically put it up for 10 minutes, take all the pictures you want of it, and then run and go and do it somewhere else, which is what happened a few years ago now, to be fair. But what gave me the idea was that name's gone out of my head. Quite a famous Gail Porter.
Oh, on the Houses of Parliament.
Houses of Parliament. Yeah, and I thought, okay, that's it. Get down there, get it on. No, do not even think about doing that one. And you just have to be a bit careful. However, as long as your work is the right resolution, obviously you can have them printed as big as you like. Almost, and billboards and stuff like that, is a great idea. It's just that all that projection stuff, it's a lot of money, and so it's something that you might consider later on. But if you're so just jump back
as a collaboration, it's conversations around collaborations with other artists.
Yes, and talking about Latitude though, so how did you get that gig, basically?
So that came through. I've been working with a team in Hay-on-Wye, and that was they were involved in Latitude Festival, area of Latitude. So that came through them, and so that was on the back of that, really, that work kind of gave me a slightly different focus, really, because I'd been making work, but I always I wasn't actually doing that many people who were recognizable. I was doing a lot more where I would create my own characters through bashing different things together, and some would be actual people, like I did one of a mash up between Dita Von Teese and Amy Winehouse, and I'll do these sorts of. So this was the first time I started doing more contemporary kind of people, really, in the public eye, that still sort of, and it was quite a challenge trying to keep them looking recognizable, but not using too much of the original images, and just trying to sort of get that balance right. So some you can see, I change quite a lot. I try and use minimal amounts, really, of the original, and add an awful lot of other pieces to it.
I think that's quite interesting thought, Amy Winehouse and Dita Von Teese.
Yeah, she's called Dita Winehouse, clearly.
Yeah,
but it was lovely. But it was So through the Latitude, there was a couple of people I was able to. Well, one in particular, I was able to make direct contact with. So there's one image of Jan, which is the one, it's sort of cascading down from the that's the one from the left hand side, and that's Jan Howarth, and she is the co-creator of the Sgt. Pepper artwork. Really keen to tell her story, because she's not widely known. A lot of people will know who Blake is.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah,
people know the Sergeant Pepper artwork, but
yeah.
Jan Howarth was the co-creator. She's also, she's still a practicing artist in her 80s. One of the first female pop artists. Herself works in collage, but also soft sculpture. Some of her work is in the permanent collection in Wolverhampton Art Gallery, which is one of the first art galleries I went to as a child. So, for me, it was really important to champion her as a female artist. And so I initially just reached out actually on social media, not to her, but to her daughter, Liberty Blake, who's also a collage artist, just saying, look, I'd really, really like to make a piece of work about your mum. And amazingly, I got a response, and she put me in touch with Jan, and we started emailing. And Jan lives in Utah, and Jan gave me that picture. She gave me a couple of pictures to work with, and that was just really amazing to be able to have that kind of conversation. Even things like the whole thing with the cowboy hat, because the other picture she sent me was her as a child, and she was sort of sitting on this fake, kind of like a bucking bronco with as a cowgirl. So that was that little reference. And she did some books, like how-to books for children, like how to make, like almost like Blue Peter type, crafts. So I managed to find these books. I think they're from the 80s maybe. And so lots of little things like the sheriff star on her hat was cut from those how-to books. And then so obviously there's reference to the Beatles, but in her own work, she made soft sculptures of Mae West, of Shirley Temple, so they're referenced in there as well. So she's possibly the least recognised one of all of that series, but for me that was just one of the most important ones, and one of the most lovely connections to have through making the work for Latitudes. That was really special.
So let's have a talk about Dolly, shall we?
Oh, Dolly. Yeah, I made Dolly at the beginning of the year, and I'm doing this is sort of a new series now, which is kind of the Kings and Queens. So there are going to be some chaps coming into this one, and the idea is they're rotatable, so they can be displayed either way up. And thinking about the playing cards that have two heads, so I had this most I love Dolly, I love everything, the kitschness, the positivity, I like what she stands for. I love actually some of the early music she was doing that was dealing with some really difficult, tricky issues around, abortion and teenage pregnancy, and rewriting some of those stories, there's the male sort of ballads, and, from the female perspective. So I'm really, really interested in Dolly and kind of what she stands for. So this was made at the beginning of the year when it was January and February, and it was grey and cold and grim, and I just thought, I need Dolly.
That's interesting. You talk about goth, punk, and all the rest of it, but you have got quite an eclectic taste in stuff, which I think is great, because otherwise,
music. I love music.
And I crikey, in the 70s and ever since, I'd say, for me it was always funk, soul. That was my thing, always has been since. Could not stand listening to Mark Bolan. Change Now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Change Now, not because I'm older, but because I understand how complex his music was. And I've got a recording of them, of T-Rex in the studio, and it's absolutely hilarious. He starts shouting across, like, hold on a minute, you're not playing, that's not a B. What the hell are you doing? All of this. Yeah. But when you listen, he was a long way ahead of his time with what he was creating. All that, his whole look just didn't work for me. But years later, you suddenly realise just how good he is. And, talking about Kate Bush as you were earlier, I think I said this to you at Flux too, that if you ever listen to some of her work that is not so well known, it's seriously complex. Yeah, really, really clever.
Definitely. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
Really, really clever.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have liked Dolly in the in the 80s, 90s. It wasn't really, everyone loves Jolene. You can't not like Jolene, but there was the most of it. And I still don't love everything like anyone. I don't love everything, but there's some stuff that I just really, I just think it's really
nice. I think there are, but also I think there are songs that people sing that you that resonate with you because of the memory they will generate.
Yeah.
And I, you know, there are, and I can remember. I mean, I wasn't a monstrous Beatles fan. I was in the 60s. Sorry, I'm that old. I was in the 60s. We used to have plastic Beatle wigs.
Brilliant.
And the same guitars, and we were the Beatles. That was it in the 60s.
I love it.
And yeah, but the thing is that, and after that, no, I wasn't really a big fan at all. When they all started going a bit odd, no, not for me. But I can remember the day that John Lennon was shot, and I cried my eyes out. You know, it's just because of what I grew up with their music.
Yeah.
You know, it was that kind of thing. So it is exactly.
It's all your memories, isn't it? And actually, those formative years are so key. Yeah. Oh, so that's Nina Simone.
Yes.
Quite a recent one. So again, somebody that I've come to a bit later on, really. I mean, there was a few songs I've always really liked, but yeah, just her story. And again, a very similar story of that very sort of, you know, sense of, you know, the ambition. And actually, I mean, you know, again, she faced, you know, she was classical pianist, wasn't she? And never quite kind of was, you know, got the recognition and perhaps for that. And was, but I just love, you know, the story around her is of how being quite, you know, uncompromising. You know, I've been reading her autobiography, you know, just all these words come up that are seen as difficult and all these things they label women if you don't toe the line and you want to do things your way. So I just really wanted to do something in celebration of her. And it's just really lovely to immerse yourself in some of her. And you discover stuff, you know, often I listen to podcasts or I listen to the music and there's always something that comes up. And I just think, God, how come I've never heard this before? This is amazing. And so it kind of, you know, enables that new appreciation.
Yeah, it is. And it's, I just think all of these things. So I'm starting to get a feel for this. If there's an artist that you like, then you will source something around that. But what about if you come across an image that you think, oh my, wow, that looks amazing. Yeah. I need to find out who that is. What about, have you had that side of it?
Yeah, I think I have a little bit actually. Yeah, I can't think of it at the moment, but yeah, because I source a lot of, you know, I look at old music magazines or old film magazines, or whatever, and sometimes, yeah, you do just come across stuff. Yeah. It's just like, oh gosh, that's a really strong image. Is that somebody I want to tell the story of? Is their story? But it has to be, you know, it has to be authentic for me, and it has to be genuine. Like there's sometimes I'm asked to do certain people, will you do one of so and so? I mean, one that comes up quite a lot for me, people say, oh, would you do one of Stevie Nicks? And you know, I don't dislike, I know, and I've got no issue, I don't dislike her, but I don't have a relationship. It doesn't really mean anything to me. And that's
is that interesting enough?
So I can't.
Is that me asking you that question by any chance? Is it?
But what I say then is that's why I run workshops, because I say, right, you need to come and do it with me. If you love Stevie Nicks, let's get an image, come and do it, because you can put what I put into the picture. So for me, like I say, it's so much more than just doing an image of somebody. There needs to be meaning, and it needs to be about my relationship. So that would be how I approach it. And I love doing that. And you hear somebody else's stories around it, and it's fabulous. You know, it's great.
And it's very interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, I immediately went like that, but not for the reasons you think.
Okay.
Because of her voice, actually.
Okay.
Her singing voice is just so good. Yeah. And it doesn't. It wouldn't bother me what she looks like, because but I know that there's an awful lot of men out there who of a certain age who Stevie Nicks was on the college wall, you know.
She's gorgeous, and I'm gonna think, it's just musically she wasn't somebody who Fleetwood Mac, or not really. I mean, still, you know, I do like the odd tune, but they're not meaningful to me personally. So.
No, and then if you end up watching the documentary on them, good God, it's absolute. It's they were completely crazy. Yeah, I think the only band that was totally full rock and roll, lived every single minute of it, was Sweet.
Okay.
Because they apparently in the 70s, they absolutely pushed the limit to everything, which is probably why they all ended up passing away young. But they did live everything. They lived it to the absolute full. But yeah, the Fleetwood Mac documentary is really quite funny. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen because I can show people your website. So
where to find me.
let me just do that now. So this is your website, and I can bring the captures up as well. So this is your website. It's carisjackson.com, and you've got quite a lot, is an understatement, of quite a lot of work sitting on there. As you can see, this is just on the opening page without going into all the others. Well, you say that, but you have got in the gallery section here, which came up as when I did it earlier, as icons, I think, or am I in the?
They're in the shop. Yeah, I've got a link to the shop. So then I've got a shop. Yeah, I've got a Shopify shop. So I do a limited range.
Yes, here we go.
Prints, and I do a few tote bags and towels. Actually, I'm kind of doing. So that's what takes you through some of the more recent work there.
Yeah. Aha, Dita Winehouse.
There you go. Yeah. So it's a Dita Von Teese pose. Actually, it was quite an early one. That was the first full collage that I did. So I can't remember when that was. It was something like 2000 and I don't know, 6, not 8, 9 maybe. I don't know. But that was the first one that was fully. I say fully collage. Actually, I did paint the background. Slightly different technique to what I do now. But it was a Dita pose I took, and then collaged it with pieces of Amy Winehouse mainly.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So there's also your Instagram page, which is pretty full on as well. Then do you find that people love any videos that you might put on where you're sitting there working?
I'm starting to do that a little bit. I mean, I was always a bit. I mean, and I know it's really interesting, and you've got to kind of, it takes quite a bit of work to do it, but I did it recently I designed as part of local. I'm based in Shrewsbury. I'm at English Bridge Studios in Shrewsbury, and so we've got a really thriving arts community here, and lots of collaboration goes on. So I did a wine label with 5 other artists for a local winery, and so I did show the process because it had to be done. The original was wine label size, so it was tiny. And so I did show that. I thought it was really nice to show that video. So I've started doing that a little bit more because I know people love to see the process, and it is interesting because I guess you take it for granted a bit yourself when you're doing it. I think, oh gosh, it's very slow. It's a very slow process. So obviously I have to speed it up massively.
Well, yeah. I mean, people always say they love it if I show me in a studio or anything. But what I find quite interesting is, in truth, we both work in the same sort of thing, because I'm cutting people out that are photographed. I'm cutting objects out on photograph and then putting them into Photoshop and building the image. You're doing it by hand. Yeah,
by paper.
Yeah, but it's still a layered system.
It is very much a layered system. Yeah, and that's absolutely. It's a bit. The approach wise is whether you do digitally or paper based. And for me, scissors, paper, and glue is my joy. I won't ever go digital in terms of making art because it just doesn't. It doesn't.
No, it's not your. No,
it's
exactly.
But absolutely. There's. It's an amazing art form, and combining all those different things like you do with photographs and everything. It's amazing. Yeah. It's multi-layering and composing, isn't it? And that's so exciting when you're taking all these disparate parts and creating something new.
Well, that's what I sort of related to when you said that you will cut all the things out and 12 days could be moving it all around. It's the same. It's the same thing. You've cut them out, you got them on a layer, you're moving them to where it feels right for the image. And you couldn't do it digitally. It wouldn't look the same.
No, and I like imperfection. I say I'm also very strict myself. I cut things out with scissors. I don't want a scalpel. Even when I did the wine label glass, I cut the tiniest pair of glasses out, tiny. But I'm like, no, I'm doing it with my scissors. I'm going to do it. So it's just for me, I think it's just, you find the thing that gives you joy, don't you? And you just do it.
Yeah.
So
It's,
I found my thing, I think.
Yeah, and it's very different. I mean, you would have seen Katerina at Flux, also a collage artist, but completely different to you.
Yeah, amazing collage artist. But yeah, I love, and it's fascinating to see her process, very different to mine. And it's just, it is just so lovely to see. I'm going on the Contemporary Collage Magazine conference in Stoke next week. I'm so excited. I've never been in a room full of other collagists, and I'm doing 2 workshops, so I'm like, I'm going to be with.
Brilliant! Wow, brilliant. So look, we got 5 minutes. Let's just talk about Shrewsbury, and let's also talk about Brighton, because for some reason I actually initially thought you were from Brighton.
I know, I pretend
and that was because we had a bit of a conversation about that. So you're from Wolverhampton, but you live in Shrewsbury.
Well, I live near Shrewsbury. My studio's in Shrewsbury. So I'm an amazing studio, English Bridge Studios. Got a website which you can look at, englishbridgestudios.org. It's rammed full of different, artists, different practices. I'm in a shared studio space, which is amazing. So you've got a real sort of buzz, and we hold workshops here. We've just got a really thriving arts community in Shrewsbury. It's brilliant.
That is, I mean, when I first started, I was renting a studio space, and I'm talking about a very long time ago, but I was renting a studio space that was in Wandsworth, along the Wandsworth Road, called 401.5, and the whole building was full of people, all actually on Craft Council grants, all of them.
Yeah.
But they were right across the board. There were collage artists, there were potters, you name it, they were in the building. I was making furniture, so I wasn't actually I wasn't in the same sort of thing, and I certainly wasn't on a Craft Council grant, but that the whole place was full of it. They would then go to Covent Garden on a weekend and have a stall and sell them. That was it. But there's not that many sort of places around, particularly in London, where it's not, it's just too crazy and too expensive.
No, and that's it. And it feels really special to have that. And actually, I've only been in this particular studios since January. Prior to that, I also had open studio as part of another business. So this has been just brilliant, and it's just a really great network, and it's a very it's a very inclusive, supportive community. And it just, there's loads of opportunity for collaboration. And so that's, for me as an artist, that's super exciting. I love it.
And so what about what's your link with Brighton then? What is it?
Brighton. So I really, other than really, really loving Brighton, and, I go down, I've got friends there, but my husband was there for quite a number of years. And so before he was my husband, he used to go down and stay. So I've been going down, and I love the obviously it's a beautiful city. It's got a really exciting art scene. And so I've just started kind of connecting with that a little bit, because I love the work that's about, and the people have just been brilliant. So I do some art markets. I've got one coming up with the Peter Coffee. I'm doing the market at the end of the month on I think it's the 30th and 31st of August. I had an solo exhibition at Hotel Pelirocco at the beginning of the year, which is really great. The Rock and Roll Hotel. So I just kind of, I just really love the scene down there. And I think, as an artist, you have to find where you fit. You haven't got to try and crack it everywhere. And I think you see where your tribe are, and you see where you think you fit. That's what I do. I go, right, I want to be here. What these guys, because this is, I feel like, they get me and I get them. So that's I'll put my work wherever I feel is, it's a good fit, really.
So one last picture is this, where you've done a bit of a Tyburn Gate.
Yeah, that's a little snippet. Yeah, it's like a 3-sided piece. That it's in London, Hilton Metropole.
Hilton, that's it. Yeah,
in the Hilton. So that's a permanent installation. So that was a commission.
Fantastic.
A bit different to my other work, but looking at sort of the old markets of London. So there's a lot of using old imagery with, updating it with, more contemporary images. But that's actually three sides of a central pillar in Tyburn Market in the Hilton.
Marvelous. Right. Well, look, we're out of time. I told you the hour would go pretty quick.
Yeah, that's good.
But, don't run off because we'll have a quick little chat afterwards. I've got one thing I'm going to share with people, which this is a bit of a big one for me. And how many people? Oh, there's one person now watching. So
Oh, no, don't run.
with a bit of luck, they won't. Nobody will see too much about it because we're launching this next week. So, but it is something really quite exciting. I'll speak to you in a bit, but for now, Caris Jackson, thank you so much for coming on. It was a really enjoyable, interesting talk for me. I love this kind of stuff.
Thank you.
And I say this every week, but I've not yet had anybody doing the same thing. So it's really great to have you on. And
I appreciate the invitation, Gary. Thank you.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. So don't run away. I'll just turn your camera off, but I'll wait for you. Wait 2 minutes and I'll be with you. Well, there you go. I thought that would be a cracker. So, as I said, I did actually say right at the beginning that I am at the Lincoln Steampunk Festival next week. And on Friday, a lot of people will find out about this. But anybody that's watching this now, here's a little sneak preview of something coming up. Now you have to be quick to catch that at the end, and if you're going to watch it back on YouTube, you might have to stop it and read that last slide. But yes, something big is kicking off next week, and it's something that I've been working on and wanting to happen since 2012 when I started the Imaginarium. So keep your eyes peeled, and you will find out about it. But yeah. Very exciting. But anyway, I will next week. I'm actually going to broadcast from the festival. It starts on Friday, but I'm there on Thursday setting up, and then I will broadcast, and I'll probably be standing outside the local pub talking to a load of steampunks. But I'm going to broadcast from there next week just to give you a bit of an idea, and then back with the art stuff the following week. But for now, thanks for watching as usual, and I'll see you soon.